Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm thrilled to be here with you. Hope you're having a successful week. I know school's back in session. The ball is rolling. We're getting a lot of things done. Many of us are preparing for all different types of events, conferences, workshops, professional development, trainings, and whatnot. So I wish all of you the best. I know that's taking quite a bit of many of our times, and many of us have been very gritty about those things. So kudos to all of you. Congratulations to all of you. And I wish all of you nothing but the best of luck and success in all of these endeavors. Now, let's get to our show. First things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on X Factor EDU, hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and it can also be found on Spotify. In addition, I will also have this show airing on my social media platforms, which you can find Miss India White as Facebook. LinkedIn is the India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram's Indie238. YouTube is India White123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. We usually will be able to find the show on Thursday nights. Now, I just want to say ahead of time, I have a couple of conferences and events coming up. So I will do my best to stick to that Thursday deadline. But if not, just know that I love you dearly, and I will get it up as soon as I return from travel, or, whether I can record during travel or something. I'll figure out a way to be gritty, hopefully. But, if everything, remains doable and flexible, then I will be able to upload for y'all. So I also wanted to remind you to check out the website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, and to schedule me for a speaking or coaching event. Thank you to those that have ever bought a book or workbook or have reached out to me to speak at an event. Thank you. I'm getting your emails. Some of you are still responding to, so thank you for your patience. And if you're wanting tutoring or things like that, send an email or, send a request on my website. So please don't hesitate to contact me. Know that I'm here for you guys. And I love rubbing shoulders with all of you and doing great work with all of you across this nation. Now, I wanted to remind you guys of some events coming up. We've got NCSM is at the end of the month. NCTM is at the end of the month. NATM is at the end of the month. ICTM is is in October. ICTM is in October in Iowa. OCTM in Ohio. ATM and E. Northwest Conference, also the South Carolina Conference, also the NAPSE Conference. I'm honored to be a part of NAPSE at the end of the year, and some others that are filling in. And if you're a district that is wanting to put me on this list or put me on your list, please reach out to me while we have, availability. The calendar does fill up, and I'm sure all of you guys understand that process. So thank you in advance for the opportunities and for reaching out to me. I wanted to also remind you guys about the Grit Mini Workshop on the Grassroots Workshops website. I think I would recommend this for incoming teachers, professional development support, for those at university levels. I would recommend this course for you. I know it's not heavily advertised, but it is out there. So I want to encourage you guys to take a look at that when you get a chance. Now, if you're joining this podcast, again, if you're trying to close the achievement gap, but you're having classroom management issues, or if your students aren't motivated to do the work, then Grit and Equity Talks podcast, so that we can talk about some things. And so I've been thinking, I've had some time on my hands to think about a couple of different things that could really assist teachers, students, leaders, principals, superintendents in education. And I wanted to talk about it. So I wanted to talk with you today about resilience in education. I think we understand what resilience is for the most part, right? The definition really means that you're able to bounce back from tough situations in a quicker than usual time. So I think resilience is something that we all hope to have, right? We have to have some amount of resilience. So I think this is going to be a really neat episode as we talk. I'm going to show you a couple of videos and some articles and things like that. So let's jump into it. So first things first, I do want to start by talking about just in general, what is resilience, the science of resilience. What does that look like? Center on the Developing Child from Harvard University. That's why it's so good. Okay. And so we're going to talk about it together.
Resilience is the result of a highly interactive process between individual characteristics in the person and the environment in which that individual has developed.
It's really the counterbalancing of difficult things that may exist in the child's life with positive things that occur within the family, but even positive things that may exist in the community.
An easy way of thinking about resilience is like a scale with a fulcrum in the middle of it. And there are things on both sides of that scale, experiences of both bad things or good things.
Our genes.
I want to stop there. Look at this scale. Something just I thought of. So usually the negative and the positive will balance out, right? I want to look at the scale. We usually want the good to outweigh the bad, right? So that we have more optimism. But have you ever heard of people that have said, for instance, their parents, and they have given their child so many good things over here, and the child hasn't really experienced anything negative over here. So as a result, you'll get these comments from certain parents that will say, I did everything right. And my child just doesn't seem to have grit or as much resilience. And it just makes me think that no one is exempt, no matter how great their experiences are in life or how horrible their experiences are in life. No one is exempt from crossing the road of grit, crossing the road of resilience. Even students that have not had that many hardships or that many negative outcomes in their life, and they have a stack of good outcomes. They've got college paid for, they've got stocks, they've got everything you could think of. They're spoiled, as people would say. Hey, more power to them. However, they are also going to have to learn how to navigate through life and to build grit and to build resilience. I thought it was very interesting that he was saying that on that scale, because life is that scale of good and bad. And so, this is why, unfortunately, sometimes when students have been given everything and they have not been properly trained to deal with adversity and hardship, then they can really have a tough time bouncing back and being resilient, even though it seems like they have everything. So I thought that was very interesting. So let's keep it moving.
Shape where the fulcrum is positioned at the start.
There are certain genes that make a child more sensitive to the effects of maltreatment or parental neglect or witnessing violence.
The fulcrum may start out kind of more towards one side or more towards the other side, and that's going to make a big difference in terms of how much these subsequent events affect things positively or negatively.
Wow.
Science tells us that experience moves the fulcrum, for better or for worse.
Even though we are born with genes, genes will respond differently to certain environmental situations as opposed to others.
What the genes are actually doing are turning up or turning down the expression of chemicals in circuits in the brain and the circuitry in the entire body that govern our responses to stress, to anxiety, to depressive symptoms.
When positive experiences accumulate and children learn coping skills that help them to manage stress, the fulcrum can slide, so the scale tilts toward positive outcomes more easily. That's what resilience is all about.
Wow.
There's always an adult, or more than one adult, who is key to providing that relationship that helps to build resilience.
That's why it's so powerful to have a mentor. And I do have a workbook, great workbook for mentors. It's imperative to have a mentor for children, I believe, of all ages, because it's going to help them with this process to really, especially navigate through maybe some negative thoughts that they might have had, some negative situations that they're encountering in their lives. And it's so interesting because we do all of the scholarly work, we do our research, but, to really starting to, it is grit is a psychological trait. It's something that we look at psychologically, but to really dive deep into resilience, into the fulcrum, and to see those comparisons and that relationship, I think is very powerful. And I think that if teachers and principals, superintendents can come to the table and realize that not all students have a balanced fulcrum area or scale. No, there's not always a balanced resilience scale. So therefore, we have to help teach resilience and to teach students how to bounce back. And that's through building grit. That's through having that great resilience in time. It's key. Students need us. So I want to go into my thoughts about resilience. And, I think resilience has been a great companion of my life. You guys have heard my story, of all of the different adversities, and I'm thankful to the Almighty for that, for being able to remain resilient. However, everybody does have their limit. And I think that, as you are striving to be resilient as an educator, or you're striving to build resilience in students, or principals building resilience in teachers and whatnot, it's imperative that you also take care of yourself in the process. I think that resilience is great. It's my hope that you don't always have to be resilient in every single task, but that life smiles on you at times, so that you don't always have to bounce back from hardships. Because it's like you're always in like this flight or fight mode, and it's always like warfare, and it shouldn't always be heavy like that. We should all eventually get a good break in life. It's my hope for all of us. So with that said, I do want to give you tips on remaining resilient from me. So I was just thinking, I was like, what would I tell you from my own life, and from overcoming homelessness, to burying both of my parents, and dealing with so many hardships, especially emotional hardships. What can I say for you regarding being resilient? First things first, forgive your shortcomings. So many times, when I was in Minnesota, we were talking about this too. So many times we can be so hard on ourselves, and we are our worst critic. And if you ever really stop and think, see, that's the thing, is we don't stop and think enough. Like, we're always on the go. Well, not all of us. Some of us are always on the go. I'm guilty of this. And sometimes you have to stop and slow down and be thankful for your plot in life, and everything you've got going on. Be thankful for your destiny, but then be proud of yourself. Pat yourself on the back. Some of us, we have this humility, but it goes to the extreme where we won't even take credit for anything. We won't even, treat ourselves, because we're like, oh, the work's got to get done. There's still one. And the thing is, life does go on, with or without us. And, I just heard of a very horrible situation of I just read about it in the paper or whatnot, where a woman was at work, and she had passed away. I would say she was deceased for about 4 days, and she passed away at work in her desk, and no one knew. Like, and there's so many questions there, right? But the thing is, I wonder sometimes, like, it's great to be resilient, but we also have to learn how to balance this thing out. We also have to learn how to not be so hard on ourselves that we're driving ourselves into the ground by always overworking, always doing everything so much. And the way we could do that is by forgiving our shortcomings, and by realizing that, we're only one person. We only have so much strength. We're better together. So allow others to be there for you, and also be willing to be proud of the work that you've done. It might not be absolutely perfect all the time, but hey, at least you gave your best effort, and you're doing your best to contribute to society in a good way. Number 2, being optimistic about your mistakes. That kind of trickles into, just the whole process of that self-care and loving yourself. We all have made mistakes, and I think too, this is powerful when you're talking about the whole fulcrum thing and resilience and the scale. Because if students don't have many negative experiences or outcomes in their learning, you see, and people have seen that it will affect how they see themselves. It will affect confidence, their self-efficacy, right? So it kind of goes with that resilience piece. It can also affect self-efficacy in this way. And it also can open up a door to a whole just negative thought processes and fixed mindset, because a student could not be optimistic about their mistakes, And so I think that, how can you be optimistic? It's going to be through having that positive self-talk, talking positive. I know I can do this. I know I'm called, I'm called to do this, or, I've done something similar before, or I'm excited about the task at hand. I know this is going to expand the company. It's going to expand me. It's going to expand my classroom. It's going to, whatever. Just being positive. Number 3, give yourself permission to start over. I'm going to say that again. Give yourself permission to start over. Whether that's starting over on a task, starting over in a career, starting over in a relationship, starting over on some other type of idea, business venture, whatever you've got going on. It's imperative that we do this, because this is how you can really cultivate that grit and that resilience, is because you're saying, okay, I'm going to reset. Sometimes when your back is against the wall, you don't know how to reset. Like I remember, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to just bring up this one example of, when my brother, after my brother, we had already buried my brother, and I was taking that last final exam in that math class. And I remember just, taking the exams, wiping tears and trying to stay focused. But afterwards, after I passed, I had a decision to make. Am I going to drop out of school, or am I going to persist? Even though at that time I didn't have any goal, like college was not in the picture, but my mentor, was very supportive and very open. And she always asked me open-ended questions to make me think about my life. And so as a result, I decided, through much prayer, conversation, and meetings with her, hey, why not take a stab at life, and why not keep going? And then how do you then recycle that hurt or that disappointment? This is where you can become effective at resilience. You have to understand that, yes, you will have shortcomings. You will have to forgive yourself. You will have mistakes, but you must bounce back. And the way you do that is by recycling those negative things that have taken place and into a new idea, into a new project. And listen, this is not to compete with anybody else. When you are dealing with resilience, you should not have other people in mind. Does that make sense? Because I think it's like bad energy. I think that's not why we're here. I think you should be resilient in a sense that you're saying, I know my purpose is ABC. This just happened to me. I'm going to recycle this negativity, and I'm going to now do my best to excel and to exceed beyond my goal of doing ABC. It's all about you becoming a better version of you. And so you can do that while you give yourself permission to start over. Okay. Also, phone a friend. I know we've seen that one show. I don't know if it's around anymore. The one TV show where Make a Deal. I think is it Make a Deal or whatever? Or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I think that's the show. And you could phone a friend, right? And so I think that in life, sometimes you have to phone a friend. I hope that we all have someone that we can phone a friend to. There are some therapist websites or whatever that, if you don't have anyone, yeah, you can reach out to them and they'll chat with you. So, but yeah, phone a friend and talk with them about where you're at. Make sure they're a true friend, not a false friend. Make sure they're a true friend, someone that really cares about you, that wants to see you blossom. We got to be careful about putting ourselves in the hands of those that don't want to see us blossom. Like, for real, do they want to really see you blossom? Do they want to see your finances, increase? Do they want to see your family thrive? Do they want to see your business take off? Like are you around people that really want to see you blossom? Like you post something or you get something happens on the job, something great, or something happens, it's your birthday, and that is think of the first three people that are singing and cheering for you, and they love you, and they're buying gifts, and they're the first ones to text and good positive things. Those are your friends. That's what I'm talking about. Or you're at a low and they're like, hey, whatever you need, I got you, I'll cover it, or hey, come stay with me for a while, whatever, and they're just there to fill in the gap at your time of need. That is a friend. And that's what I'm talking about. Phone a friend and talk with them about what's going on in your life, and you're needing some support with resilience, and you just need some ideas, and you've got a couple of dreams that you're thinking about doing some things, and you just need some support. Phone those people. Okay, they're there for you. And then make a gritty goal list. So once you phone a friend and you make a gritty goal list, you'll be able to see like, oh, okay, I now have a vision. It's plain. I know what I'm doing now, right? I want to say this too. Sometimes you can make a list and reality will hit. And sometimes you'll have to wait a couple of years or a couple of seasons for certain things to be crossed off. I remember I was working on the equity book, one of my equity books, and um, the equity counts book collaboration. It was so, I just could not get that thing done for the life of me. I thought I was going to be able to, I thought we would be able to get it all done, like, in no time. That book took us about 2 to 3 years because there was so much going on. And, the pandemic and everything. There was so much that we were dealing with. And I experienced like a brain fog. Like there was like all these different things. And I was so hard on myself. Like, come on, India, get it together. Why haven't you, done this yet? Like, what, but then I had to realize sometimes you do have to give yourself a break. But you've got to be patient with that goal list. So I'm not saying to take 10 years to accomplish a goal, but I am saying, set a deadline. But if it doesn't come to pass at the time that you said, like you said, okay, I'm going to have this done by October. If it's not done by October, give yourself permission to reset and to revisit the list, revisit that goal, and to see how you can, bounce back with either a different approach or with more support, whatever it is that you need to get you through. And, talking about resilience, we also spoke about, like stamina. It's like the same thing, how to have stamina as you're accomplishing this list. And I tell you, if you are busy looking at someone else's list, I don't think you have enough on your list. I think if we all focus on our list and how we can be best in society and helping others, we won't have to worry about someone else's list or what someone else is accomplishing. And matter of fact, we'll be happy for others and we'll celebrate others because we understand that life has enough for all of us. Life has made room for all of us and all of our talents and our giftings. Go as far as you want, expand as far as you want. Don't believe the lie that you have to stay in a hole or a little. No, go as far as you desire to go, with the help of the Almighty. And so, with that said, I now want to first thank you for listening to my list. And I hope that you're able to take that advice. I now want to share my screen because I want to also talk about teachers and how we need resilience and how resilience.
Hello.
So I found
this
this.
time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Resilience is important to teaching. Teaching is like running a marathon over and over and over again. It's like a marathon that doesn't actually stop, or a several marathons. It's hard to say, but it's a lot. And so resilience is so key to it. That being said, if you need to walk away, you need to walk away. But if you're going to stick with it, you got to brace yourself because you're never going to get paid as much as you should, and people are going to come at you, whether they be parents, teachers, or students. But you know, there's gonna be a lot of people there for you too. But no matter how you cut it, you're gonna need some resilience. It's easier, like to say, sorry, it's easy to say that, but I do think it's worth it, and you can do it. You can be resilient. You can obtain that resilience if you don't already have it.
All right. All right. Well, that was a nice little suggestion from that guy. I now want to share an article that I found as well about resilience, but how to do it in the math setting. And so it's talking about what is resilience, what is mathematical resilience. So mathematical resilience, resilient learners have a growth mindset with respect to learning. They are comfortable with challenge and the idea of the mathematical struggle, right? So when they're dealing with that productive struggle and metacognitive process. And then it says resilient learners recognize when they are stuck and have the language to ask for support when they need it. Most important, they hold a belief that they can do math. They are a mather. They do know how to do math. They are competent. So it says here, why do students need to be mathematically resilient? Many students believe that they are not good at math. These learners need to overcome any negative attitudes. Remember, he was just talking about, you know, good outcomes and bad outcomes and how those can affect the attitudes, right? That they hold about math class. So, you know, sometimes students just have bad experiences in a math class, right? And it says those can be attributed to a number of factors. For example, many students hold a belief that math should come easy. And when they don't know an answer right away, they come to the conclusion that they are not good at math, leaving them unmotivated to keep trying, right? So sometimes even, you know, students assume that, you know, they're going to breeze through that quiz or test, but we find that sometimes the students that finish the fastest are actually doing the worst. And those that take their longest, I remember, you know, when we were giving those standardized tests, you know, before Florida had changed over to the best standards, you know, we were giving those tests. And when we issued those tests, I think I had about 4 students that took the entire time. Like they used 3+ sheets of paper front and back. They took the entire time and they got 5s on that exam. So it's not always about finishing first, but at their age of students, younger ones in particular, that's what they're thinking. That's their perception. So we as educators have to do our part in making sure that children don't feel like, oh, well, because Johnny finished first and Keisha finished, you know, they definitely got an A. But to understand that first off, it's about them, right? And it's about comparing, you know, their proficiency levels as they go, you know, and not to beat themselves up because they weren't the first one to finish. So, all right, let's keep going. Teachers' role in building resilience. Building resilience takes time, but it's achievable in a classroom environment that not only fosters a positive culture of learning and collaboration, but also values mathematical struggle. And it gives an environment where students' learning needs are understood using formative assessments and observations, where teachers spend quality time with individual students and encourage discussion between students. Problems may need to be worked through to develop persistence and risk taking. So the art of teaching would be, you know, as an educator, we have to master time management so that we can, 1, teach, 2, give students enough time to, you know, have a mathematical discourse conversation among themselves, but 3, being able to, you know, observe and to facilitate, you know, whether that's through formative assessments or whatnot, and really gradually release. I think that you're really at that art of teaching stage where you know you can gradually release, and it's like you're facilitating and there is healthy, rich mathematical discourse taking place. Not, you know, not that you've released and then it's a hot mess and then the Kool-Aid man is coming through the door. No, it's that you are doing your part to make sure that students were equipped. You taught them well. The background knowledge is there. And if not, then you have done what you needed to do through multi-tiered levels of support to get them to where they need to be, right? Those are some things that we need to really be intentional at, when we're going in to teach and we're, doing our best to cultivate resilience in our students. So with that said, let's keep going back to the back. So now it says regular math chats along with noticing and talking about the math around us and everyday experiences, cultural relevance, right? That helps to build a positive attitude toward math at a young age from students. So when you can explicitly as an educator teach a technical language and show how understanding using multiple representations such as objects, drawings, symbols, manipulatives and whatnot, that's key. It says it's important to make math visual. Please understand your students' language of how they learn. Not everybody has the same learning style. So you've got visual learners. I'm not always a visual learner, right? I'm an audio learner. So visual learner, they look at it, they can see it, boom. And many of you test yourself. Are you visual? Are you like when you see something on the screen, you got it? Or are you an audio where you heard it and you're like, oh, wait, I just need to hear that one more time and it's locked in? Or are you bodily kinesthetic where you're like, I need to be up and moving. I need to be involved. I need to be out there and about. I need to experience it. See, I'm more bodily kinesthetic and audio learner. But, what type of learning style are you? Do you learn with music? Does someone need to just sing a tune or, do a rap for you really quick on what you're trying to learn so that you can memorize it? Do you put it to music? Are you a nature person? Figure out the learning style of your learners and figure out how you can assist them. I think if you have not done that yet, that would be a great activity, a great getting to know you activity, whether it's bell work or warm up, or if it's an exit slip on a Friday, like, I don't know, like, it would be a great way for you to really help support your students even more because you're finding out more information as to how they learn so that you can adjust your teaching along the way as you're dealing with each student. So now tasks. Oh, they're talking about manipulatives up here. Okay. So now they're talking about tasks that help build resilience. And it says math is not just a set of skills to be learned. So supporting students to become numerate involves developing both mathematical skills and knowledge. Focusing on the big ideas ensures, right, that the lessons not only develop fluency, right, and required mathematical skills, but it also helps develop understanding and knowledge in a variety of contexts. So, for example, in Australia, the areas of focus in primary school include trusting the count, place value, and multiplicative thinking. Now, they also talk about novel, real-world, culturally relevant problems can help spark student interest and facilitate deep thinking. If you're having a problem with understanding those type of tasks, there is a book, Corwin has it. It's Engaging in Culturally Relevant Math Tasks by Dr. Lou Matthews, Dr. Shelley Jones, and Dr. Yolanda Parker that I would highly recommend you check out. And so, all right, so let's keep going. So it says here, students who are given the opportunity to be involved in regular problem-based tasks and are allowed time for exploration and finding solutions in collaboration with their peers can observe how others persevere. So it's really neat to have these conversations and to have those moments because students do learn from each other, I think, even more so than they learn from us. And I think it's because there's just that relevance there and there's that similarity, like they're all students, so they're all together. So I thought it was pretty neat. Now, let's wrap it up here. It says, in order to be successful in math, all students need to value mathematical thinking and discovery and to see themselves as active math learners. And in order to see themselves as an active math learner, which would foster resilience and help them to love math, they're going to also have to see representation of themselves or people similar to themselves in their textbooks, in the content that they're using. They need to hear positive talk about their progress. Even if they scored low on an exam, that exam does not define their mathematical ability. They could have just had a bad day. So we have to be flexible enough to change our attitude and our language towards students to convince them that we believe that they are smart enough to do the math and they are smart and independent math thinkers. And then in return, that's going to build their self-efficacy. That's going to help them believe in themselves that they can do it. And then they're going to become resilient and then surpassing our expectations through grit. So with that said, thanks so much, guys, for letting me share. This has been a wonderful session on resilience and education. I wanted to remind you again that this podcast, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White, will be featured on X Factor EDU Network, hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and it can be found on Spotify. You can also find it on social media platforms. Facebook's Miss India White, LinkedIn is the India White, Twitter's Indie Speak and Teach, Instagram's Indie238, YouTube is India White 123, TikTok is Dr. India White. You can check out the website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, and to schedule me for a speaking or coaching event. You can also check out the last, the Grit mini recap that I did, the Grit District recap of Minnesota. I think you'll like that. And also I wanted to remind you of some upcoming events. I'll see you guys at NCTM, NCSM. Thank you to everyone in NCTM and NCSM for the opportunity. Thank you to everyone at all of these conferences. Mwah, I appreciate all of you guys. You guys are amazing. We're going to rock it out together. We're going to have a blast. I can't wait to see many of you. And thank you to those that have already been reaching out. We're going to have a great time together. I also wanted to remind you guys, check out the Grit Mini Workshop on the Grassroots Workshops website. And if you are trying to close the achievement gap, but you're having classroom management issues or your students just aren't motivated to do the work, then this Grit and Equity Talks podcast is the show for you. So share it with a friend, share it with, with a buddy or someone, and just continue to be gritty. I appreciate you guys so much. So till next time, take grit with you.